Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to my YouTube channel. My name is Brad Berger, and I intend to create some history programs for you over the space of time. Hopefully, this is only the first of many to come, called Curios in Time. What I want to do is hopefully educate, perhaps provoke thought, lead you to buy a book or read a book about a certain topic, and perhaps even someday help you win a trivia contest. Who knows? This is just a title slide, however. It's going to live with us through the balance of these programs. It shows troops marching across the battlefield in World War I, but the subject matter today is in regard to something that happened decades earlier, March 17th, 1865. And we see that we're going to be in Washington, D.C. So let's see what was happening in Washington, D.C. on March 17th, 1865. Abraham Lincoln, of course, President of the United States. He is reelected in November 1864, takes the oath of office for the second time, March 4th, 1865. By this time in history, he is a very popular figure. Interestingly, the summer before that, the summer prior to his reelection, he believed that he wasn't going to have a very good chance against the Democratic nominee, former Union General George Brinton McClellan. He is going to, of course, as I said, win, however, and takes that oath of office for the second time. And this second inaugural is going to be very, very important because it is going to be one that is going to instill an awful lot of people with hope, rather than the fear of 1861 when Lincoln took the oath for the first time. The nation is not necessarily falling apart at this time, but it is being brought back together. He is helping to do what he can to knit the nation back together. During our defining moment as a nation, war between the states, the American Civil War. He's going to have many duties as President of the United States, and we know a lot of these as we have read our history books as children up through our adult years. Abraham Lincoln's going to have his name synonymous with many important acts during this period of the American Civil War, but of course he's going to also have other things that are not so popularly known that he's going to have to do as president, and any president really has acts that they are going to have to take care of, signing papers, receiving visitors. And this image right here is an indication of one of Abraham Lincoln's jobs at the time, and that is going to visit the troops. This is Army Hospital outside of Washington, D.C., called Campbell Army Hospital, and he is going to intend to visit troops such as these right here, troops who are convalescing through illness, battlefield injury, to visit them and help to raise spirits. And also other things that they would do at Army hospitals to raise spirits is have plays. Plays such as this, which would be like showing movies today or having celebrities come and visit the troops overseas. Bob Hope, of course, is a legendary figure in that regard. But here, Abraham Lincoln on March 17, 1865 was going to see a play called Still Waters Run Deep, as you can see, an original comedy in 3 acts by Tom Taylor, Esquire. This gentleman also wrote a play called Our American Cousin, which is perhaps the more famous of Taylor's works, and that is, of course, because that's the play that Abraham Lincoln is going to go see on April 14th, 1865 at Ford's Theater. But that, ladies and gentlemen, is a story for another day. Lincoln's intention to go to Campbell Army Hospital is going to be found out by this gentleman right here. He is a very well-known actor of the time named John Wilkes Booth. His name is as famous at this time as Tom Cruise or Brad Pitt would be today. John Wilkes Booth is going to assemble a group, as he is a very ardent supporter of the Confederate cause, to believe that he could perhaps kidnap Abraham Lincoln on the way to Campbell Army Hospital, take him into custody, and perhaps exchange him for Confederate prisoners of war, which were needed very desperately at the time. Prisoners of war which would be brought back into the Confederate Army's ranks and allow the South to fight on for another day or longer. This could perhaps be something that John Wilkes Booth could do to help lead to Southern independence. He is going to put a group together to include these individuals right here. As you can see, Lewis Powell, former Confederate soldier, John Surratt, George Atzerodt, Samuel Arnold, Michael O'Laughlin. These 5, and it's believed another 2 shadowy figures, were involved in this March 17th plot. This plot, however, is never going to come off the ground, however. This is going to be because Abraham Lincoln is not going to go to Campbell Army Hospital after all that day. The plan was for John Wilkes Booth and his band to get hold of the president somewhere between the White House and Campbell Army Hospital, up there between 6th and 7th Street, along which known as Boundary Street at the time. Now you would be nearby if you were along where 6th and 7th intersect with Florida Avenue. Washington, D.C. is not the city that you know today. In 1865, Washington, D.C. Had some spots which were rather like a rural type of environment, where perhaps highwaymen might be able to waylay Lincoln's carriage and take him into custody as Booth had intended. But this is not going to work. As I mentioned to you, Abraham Lincoln is going to intend to go to Campbell that day, but he changes his mind. He ends up delivering a speech at a hotel called the National Hotel in Washington, D.C. on that day. Ironically, the National Hotel happens to be the place that John Wilkes Booth was staying in at the time. This is going to aggravate John Wilkes Booth quite a bit. The plans of John Wilkes Booth are going to slip through his fingers, and things are going to get even worse for Booth and the supporters of the Confederate cause, as on April 2nd, Richmond will fall to the Union Army, and on April 9th, Robert E. Lee, pictured here, is going to surrender his vaunted Army of Northern Virginia to the Union Army of General Ulysses Grant. This is going to make things awfully, awfully hard for the South and the Confederacy to dig themselves out of. John Wilkes Booth, if he is going to make any kind of effort at this point, is going to have to take a much more radical effort, which he knows is going to lead to an act which could be seen by many as an act of desperation. Like I said, however, that is a story for another time, but I believe the story of March 17, 1865 is a story that you should hold on to, and a story that I believe that all Americans should know about, because Abraham Lincoln's personal liberty was in danger on that day, March 17, 1865. However, it all came to naught. I hope to see you another time on our little program here, Curios in Time. But for this moment, I would like to say thank you, and I hope you have a pleasant day. And by the way, as a postscript to this, I'd like to say, ladies and gentlemen, no, I do not have a microphone. I am just using my laptop. If these programs get more popular, I will get one, and hopefully my voice modulation will be louder and perhaps a little bit clearer. If anyone has any comments, I look forward to answering any of those. And thanks again for spending your time with me today.